What if I told you that the reason your dreams never come true has nothing to do with your goals and everything to do with your habits, your thinking, and your daily decisions? Every year begins with excitement, but only a few people actually arrive where they intended to go. The question is, what separates them from everyone else? There is a silent reason why so many people move through life feeling busy, yet going nowhere. It is not a lack of effort. It is not a lack of desire. It is a lack of clarity. A vague dream feels comforting. It allows you to imagine success without confronting the responsibility of defining it. You say, I want to be successful, I want to be happy, I want a better life. But what does that truly mean? What does success look like in your day, in your habits, in your choices? Without a clear picture, your mind has nothing to aim at, and your actions scatter in every direction. Clarity is not just a productivity tool. It is a form of honesty with yourself. When you sit in silence and ask yourself, what do I truly want? You begin to face something deeper, not what people expect from you, not what looks impressive to others, but what genuinely matters to your heart and your purpose. And this is where it becomes spiritual. Because a person who lives without clarity often lives disconnected from purpose. And a life without purpose slowly becomes heavy, confusing, and empty. You wake up, you move, you work, but something feels missing. That quiet discomfort, that restlessness, is often the absence of direction. In faith, intention matters. Your intentions shape your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. When your intentions are unclear, your path becomes unclear. But when your intention is sincere and defined, it carries weight. It carries meaning. It aligns your effort with something higher. There is a difference between saying, I want to improve my life, and saying, I will wake up earlier, protect my time, discipline my habits, and become someone worthy of greater responsibility. The first is a wish. The second is a commitment. And deep down, you feel the difference. Clarity forces you to confront reality. It removes excuses. It shows you the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that realization can be uncomfortable, because once you see clearly, you can no longer pretend. But that discomfort is powerful. It awakens something inside you. It creates urgency. It brings focus to your days. Suddenly, your time matters more. Your decisions matter more. Your distractions become more obvious, and your priorities become sharper. Without clarity, time slips away unnoticed. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and you find yourself in the same place, wondering why nothing changed. With clarity, every day has weight. You begin to measure your actions. You begin to ask yourself harder questions. Is this helping me become who I said I want to be? Is this bringing me closer to the life I defined? And when your answers are honest, your behavior begins to shift. There is also something deeply emotional about clarity. Because when you finally define what you want, you also begin to feel how far you are from it. And that distance can hurt. It can make you realize how much time has been wasted, how many opportunities were ignored, how often you settled for less than what you were capable of. That realization can either break you or build you. For those who choose growth, it becomes fuel. You start to value your time differently. You begin to protect your focus. You stop chasing everything and start committing to what truly matters. And slowly, something changes within you. You are no longer drifting. You are no longer reacting to life. You are moving with intention. And when intention becomes clear, effort becomes meaningful. Even small steps begin to feel significant because they are connected to something defined. You are no longer just working. You are no longer just hoping. You are no longer just hoping. You are building. Clarity brings discipline because you now know what deserves your energy and what does not. It also brings peace because confusion creates anxiety. Uncertainty creates hesitation. But when your direction is clear, your mind becomes calmer. You may not have everything figured out, but you know where you are going, and that alone removes a heavy burden from your heart. There is a quiet strength in knowing your path, and there is something deeply powerful about aligning your goals with purpose and intention. Because when your goals are clear and your intentions are sincere, your actions begin to carry meaning beyond just results. You are not just chasing outcomes. You are shaping who you are becoming. And that transformation begins the moment you stop being vague with your dreams and start being honest about what you truly want. There is a quiet force within you that is shaping your life every single day, whether you notice it or not. It is not your circumstances. It is not your path. It is not even other people. It is your thoughts. What you consistently think about, you begin to believe. What you believe, you begin to act on. And what you act on becomes your reality. Most people underestimate this. They treat thoughts as something temporary, something that comes and goes without consequence. But the truth is, no thought is ever wasted. Every repeated idea leaves an imprint. Every mental pattern builds a direction. If your mind is constantly filled with doubt, fear, and limitation, you may not see it immediately, but it begins to show in your actions. You hesitate, you delay, you settle, you avoid opportunities, you expect failure before even trying. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to live out the very reality you were afraid of. But the opposite is also true. When your mind is filled with belief, possibility, and purpose, something shifts. You begin to act differently. You carry yourself differently. You take risks that once felt impossible. You start moving toward growth, even when it's uncomfortable, because your actions are always a reflection of your inner world. This is why two people can face the same situation and walk away with completely different outcomes. One sees limitation. The other sees opportunity. One focuses on what could go wrong. The other focuses on what could go right. And over time, their lives move in completely different directions, not because of luck, but because of thought. There is also something deeply spiritual in this truth. Your thoughts are not just passing ideas. They are part of your intention. And intention carries weight. What you repeatedly hold in your mind begins to shape your character. It influences your choices. It affects how you treat others, how you see yourself, and how you respond to challenges. A mind filled with gratitude produces peace. A mind filled with envy produces unrest. A mind filled with purpose produces direction. You cannot consistently think negatively and expect a positive life. It is a contradiction. It goes against the very nature of how growth works. And yet, many people fall into this trap. They say they want success, but think in terms of failure. They say they want change, but think in terms of comfort. They say they want growth, but think in terms of fear. And so their actions never align with their desires. Your mind is like soil. Whatever you plant in it, whether positive or negative, will grow. It does not question you. It does not judge you. It simply accepts what is repeated and nurtures it over time. If you plant seeds of doubt, you will grow hesitation. If you plant seeds of belief, you will grow confidence. The responsibility, then, becomes clear. You must become aware of what you are feeding your mind daily. What are you listening to? What are you focusing on? What are you repeating to yourself when no one else is around? Because those quiet, repeated thoughts are building your future. There is also an emotional truth that many people avoid. Sometimes your negative thinking feels justified. You've been disappointed, you've tried and failed, and so your mind begins to protect you by expecting less. But that protection comes at a cost. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. It limits your potential. It reduces your effort. It slowly convinces you that you are less capable than you truly are. And over time, that belief becomes your identity. Breaking this pattern requires awareness and courage. You have to catch your thoughts in the moment. You have to question them. You have to ask yourself, is this thought helping me become who I want to be, or is it holding me back? And when the answer is uncomfortable, that is where change begins. Replacing your thoughts is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing a direction. It is about deciding that even in uncertainty, you will think in terms of growth. Even in difficulty, you will think in terms of possibility. Even in fear, you will think in terms of action. Because the thoughts you choose today will become the habits you live tomorrow. And slowly, something powerful begins to happen. Your mind becomes more focused. Your actions become more intentional. Your confidence begins to grow. Not because life is easier, but because you are king differently. And when your thinking changes, your life cannot remain the same. There is a dangerous illusion that holds many people back, the belief that success is driven by motivation. That feeling, the rush of inspiration, the surge of energy, the moment where you feel unstoppable, it's powerful. It makes you believe that this time will be different. This time you will change everything. But motivation is a visitor. It comes and it goes. And when it leaves, it takes your excitement with it. This is where most people fall apart. They begin strong. They feel inspired. They take action for a few days, sometimes a few weeks, but then life returns to its normal rhythm. The emotions fade. The excitement disappears. And suddenly the same goals that once felt urgent become optional, not because they no longer matter, but because they were never anchored in discipline. Discipline is different. It does not rely on feelings. It does not wait for the perfect mood. It does not ask whether you feel ready. It simply asks, will you do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it? And that question is where transformation begins. Because the truth is, your life is not shaped in moments of high emotion. It is shaped in the quiet, ordinary days. The days when no one is watching. The days when you feel tired. The days when your mind whispers, skip it. It doesn't matter. Those are the moments that define you. Anyone can act when they feel motivated. But very few can act when they feel nothing. And yet, those are the actions that carry the most weight. There is something deeply emotional about realizing this, because it forces you to confront your own patterns. How many times have you waited to feel ready? How many times have you depended on inspiration only to lose momentum when it faded? That cycle is exhausting. It creates hope, followed by disappointment. It builds excitement, followed by guilt, and over time, it begins to damage your confidence in yourself. You start to question your own ability to follow through. But the issue was never your ability. It was your approach. You were trying to build a disciplined life on temporary emotions. And emotions were never meant to carry that weight. There is also a deeper, more spiritual dimension to discipline. Discipline is a form of sincerity. It is proof that your intentions are real. It shows that you are not just saying what you want. You are living in alignment with it. Because in the end, it is easy to make promises in moments of inspiration. But true integrity is revealed in moments of resistance. When you choose to act despite discomfort, when you continue despite boredom, when you remain consistent despite slow progress, you are demonstrating something powerful, that your commitment is stronger than your emotions. And that is where real growth begins. Discipline also builds trust within yourself. Every time you follow through on what you said you would do, you strengthen your self-respect. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who starts and stops, but as someone who continues. And that identity shift is life-changing. Because once you trust yourself, everything becomes easier. You no longer rely on motivation to begin. You no longer negotiate with your excuses. You no longer wait for the perfect moment. You simply act, because it is who you are. There is also a quiet beauty in disciplined living. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not seek attention. It is built in repetition, in small, consistent actions that seem insignificant in the moment, but become powerful over time. Waking up when you said you would, doing the work when it feels boring, staying focused when distractions call you. Continuing when res. Halts are not yet visible. These are not exciting moments, but they are the moments that build extraordinary lives. And there is something deeply humbling about this truth, because it removes all shortcuts. It reminds you that success is not hidden in rare bursts of effort, but in the discipline to show up again and again and again. Even when you don't feel like it. Fear has a way of feeling real, even when it is not. It whispers quietly at first. What if you fail? What if you're not ready? What if it goes wrong? And the more you listen, the louder it becomes. What begins as a small hesitation slowly turns into doubt. Doubt turns into delay, and delay turns into inaction. And here is the danger. Fear grows strongest when you do nothing. When you wait, your mind begins to imagine outcomes that have not happened. It creates scenarios, exaggerates risks, and magnifies uncertainty. You start to believe things that are not even real yet. And because there is no action to challenge those thoughts, they settle into your mind as truth. This is why waiting feels safe, but slowly becomes destructive. Because every day you delay, your confidence weakens just a little more. You begin to question yourself. You begin to overthink simple decisions. You begin to lose belief in your own ability to move forward. And eventually, fear doesn't just stop you from acting. It convinces you that you cannot act. But here is the truth. Most people never realize fear is not defeated by thinking. It is defeated by movement. The moment you take action, no matter how small, you interrupt the cycle. You give your mind proof that you are capable. You shift from imagination to experience. And experience is powerful, because once you act, you begin to see reality instead of assumptions. You realize that many of the things you feared were exaggerated. You discover that you can handle more than you thought. You begin to understand that progress is not about being perfect. It is about being willing. And slowly, something changes inside you. Your fear does not disappear instantly, but it loses its control. There is something deeply emotional about that moment. The moment you act despite fear, the moment you step forward while your mind is still uncertain, the moment you choose courage over comfort, that is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move anyway. And every time you do that, you build confidence. Not the loud, temporary kind of confidence that comes from motivation, but the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from experience. You begin to trust yourself. You start to believe, even if this is difficult, I will figure it out. Even if I fail, I will learn. Even if I'm unsure, I can still move. That belief is not created by waiting. It is created by doing. There is also a deeper spiritual lesson here. You are not meant to stand still in fear. You are meant to strive, to take steps, to make effort with sincerity. Results are never fully in your control, but effort is. And when you take action with honest intention, something shifts within you. You stop measuring yourself by outcomes and start measuring yourself by effort. That removes a heavy burden, because now your responsibility is simple: to show up, to try, to move forward, even when it's uncomfortable. And when you do that consistently, fear begins to lose its influence over your life. It no longer dictates your decisions. It no longer defines your limits. It becomes something you feel but do not obey. There is also a painful truth hidden in inaction. Every opportunity you avoid, every step you delay, every decision you postpone, it leaves behind a quiet regret. Not always immediately, but over time. You begin to wonder, what if I had tried? What if I had taken that step? What could my life have been if I didn't let fear stop me? And that question can stay with you. That is why action is not just about progress. It is about peace. Because when you act, even imperfectly, you remove the weight of what if. You replace regret with experience. You trade hesitation for growth. And even if things don't go exactly as planned, you gain something far more valuable: strength, clarity, and belief in yourself. So understand this clearly. Fear feeds on waiting, but it weakens in the presence of action. And the moment you decide to move, no matter how uncertain you feel, you begin to take your life back from it. There is a silent influence in your life that you rarely question, yet it is shaping who you are becoming every single day. Your environment, not just the place you live in, but the voices you listen to, the content you consume, the people you surround yourself with, and the ideas you allow into your mind. Most people believe they are in control of their choices, but they don't realize how deeply their environment is influencing those choices. You begin to think like what you are exposed to. You begin to speak like what you repeatedly hear. You begin to act like what you constantly see. And over time, you slowly become it. This transformation is quiet. It does not announce itself. It happens gradually through repetition. A conversation here, a video there, a habit picked up without noticing, and before you realize it, your mindset has shifted. If your environment is filled with negativity, excuses, and limitation, it begins to feel normal. Complaining becomes natural. Procrastination becomes acceptable. Mediocrity becomes comfortable. You may not even realize it's happening, but your standards begin to drop. And once your standards drop, your actions follow. And once your actions change, your results reflect it. There is something deeply emotional about recognizing this, because it forces you to look around and ask, who is influencing me? What am I allowing into my mind daily? Is this environment helping me grow or quietly holding me back? And sometimes the answer is uncomfortable. Sometimes the very spaces you feel familiar in are the ones limiting your potential. The conversations that feel normal are the ones keeping you small. The habits that feel easy are the ones preventing your growth. And that realization can hurt, because change in environment often requires distance. Distance from what is familiar, distance from what is comfortable, sometimes even distance from people you care about. But growth has a cost. You cannot remain in the same environment that shaped your limitations and expect to become a different person. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to this truth. What you expose your mind to affects your heart. And what affects your heart affects your actions. A heart surrounded by negativity becomes heavy. The heart surrounded by purpose becomes alive. If you constantly hear doubt, your belief weakens. If you constantly hear encouragement, your confidence grows. Your environment is feeding you every single day. The question is, what is it feeding you? Because just like your body reflects what you eat, your mind reflects what you consume. If you feed it distraction, comparison, and negativity, it will produce confusion, insecurity, and fear. But if you feed it knowledge, discipline, and purpose, it will produce clarity, strength, and direction. This is not accidental. It is cause and effect. There is also something powerful about intentional environment. When you choose what you listen to, when you become selective about what you watch, when you surround yourself with people who think bigger, act stronger, and live with purpose, you begin to rise. Not because you are forcing yourself, but because your environment is pulling you upward. You start to think differently. You start to expect more from yourself. You start to see possibilities where you once saw limits. And slowly, your identity begins to change. You are no longer the person you used to be. Your standards increase. Your habits improve. Your mindset sharpens. And it all begins with what you allow around you. There is also a quiet warning in this truth. If you do not choose your environment, it will choose you. And most environments are not designed for your growth. They are designed for comfort, distraction, and sameness. So if you are not intentional, you will drift. Drift into habits you didn't choose. Drift into thinking patterns that limit you. Drift into aversion. Yourself that feels average but unfulfilled. That is why awareness is powerful. The moment you become conscious of your environment, you begin to take back control. You begin to protect your mind. You begin to filter what enters your thoughts. You begin to create a space that supports who you want to become. And that decision changes everything. Because when your environment supports your growth becomes natural. And when your growth becomes natural, your identity transforms without resistance. There is a quiet truth that many people struggle to accept. Great results are not created by big moments. They are created by small actions, repeated daily. We are often drawn to intensity. We admire the idea of working harder, pushing further, doing more in a short period of time. It feels powerful. It feels productive. It feels productive. But intensity without consistency is temporary. It rises quickly and then disappears just as fast. You've felt this before? That moment where you decide, this is it. I'm going to change everything. You push yourself harder than usual. You do more than you've ever done. You feel unstoppable for a few days. And then something shifts. You get tired. You lose rhythm. You slow down. And eventually you stop. Not because you didn't care, but because you tried to build something lasting on something temporary. Consistency, on the other hand, is different. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not rely on emotion. It is simple, and that is why it is powerful. It is showing up when it feels ordinary. It is doing the work when it feels repetitive. It is continuing when there is no immediate reward. And this is where most people struggle, because consistency feels slow. You don't see instant results. You don't feel a sudden transformation. You don't get immediate recognition, and your mind begins to question, is this even working? Does this really matter? Should I be doing more? That doubt is dangerous because it tempts you to abandon what is working, just because it is not exciting. But the truth is, progress is often invisible in the beginning. Each small action may seem insignificant on its own. One day of effort doesn't change much. One habit doesn't transform your life overnight. But repetition changes everything. When you repeat an action daily, it begins to build momentum. And momentum is powerful, because once momentum starts, things begin to feel easier. What once required effort becomes natural. What once felt difficult becomes routine. And suddenly, you are no longer forcing yourself, you are flowing with your habits. There is something deeply emotional about this realization, because it removes the illusion of shortcuts. It shows you that the life you want is not built in one moment of effort, but in hundreds of small decisions you make every single day. It forces you to confront your patience. Can you keep going when results are not visible? Can you stay committed when no one is watching? Can you trust the process when your mind is asking for proof? That is where real growth happens. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to consistency. Consistency reflects sincerity. It shows that your intentions are not temporary. It shows that your commitment is real. Anyone can take action when they feel inspired, but consistency requires something deeper. Discipline, patience, and faith in the unseen, because when you act consistently, you are trusting that your effort has meaning, even before you see the results, and that trust transforms you. It builds resilience, it strengthens your character, it aligns your actions with your purpose. There is also a quiet beauty in repetition, waking up and doing what needs to be done, improving slightly each day, choosing discipline over distraction, continuing even when it feels monotonous. These moments may seem small, but they are shaping your future. And over time, something incredible begins to happen. The small actions begin to compound. What once felt like little progress starts to create visible change. Your skills improve. Your mindset sharpens. Your confidence grows. Not because of one big achievement, but because of consistent effort. You begin to see results. Not sudden, but undeniable. And that is the power of momentum. It turns effort into progress. It turns habits into identity. It turns small beginnings into meaningful outcomes. There is also a warning hidden in inconsistency. When you stop and start repeatedly, you break your own momentum. Each time you quit, you return to the beginning. Each time you delay, you weaken your progress. And over time, this pattern becomes exhausting. You feel like you're trying, but not moving. You feel like you're working, but not growing. Not because you lack ability, but because you lack continuity. And continuity is what creates transformation. So understand this clearly. It is not what you do once that defines you. It is what you do repeatedly. It is not the intensity of your effort. It is the consistency of your actions. Because small actions, done daily, have a power that occasional effort can never match. There is a belief that quietly misleads many people. Once I achieve success, then I will become confident. Once I reach my goal, then I will become disciplined. Once things change, then I will become better. But this way of thinking reverses the truth. Achievement does not create identity. Identity creates achievement. You do not become successful because you achieved something. You achieved something because you became the person capable of it. And this is where most people struggle. They focus on the result, but ignore the transformation required to reach it. They want the outcome without becoming the person who can sustain it. But life does not work that way, because even if you somehow reach a result without changing internally, you will not be able to hold it. Success without identity is temporary. Growth without character is unstable. This is why some people achieve something and lose it. Why some people rise and then fall back. Because their external results grew faster than their internal foundation. There is something deeply emotional about realizing this, because it shifts the responsibility back to you. It forces you to stop asking, how do I get this? And start asking, who do I need to become? That question is heavier because it requires change, not in what you want, but in how you live. It asks you to examine your habits, your discipline, your mindset, your reactions, your daily choices. And sometimes, what you find is uncomfortable. You realize that the version of you today is not aligned with the future you desire. Your habits may not support your goals. Your mindset may not match your ambitions. Your discipline may not reflect your intentions. And that gap is where transformation begins. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to identity. You are not just defined by what you achieve, but by who you are becoming in the process. Your character matters. Your sincerity matters. Your consistency matters. Because actions done without integrity may produce results, but they do not produce fulfillment. True success is not just reaching a goal, it is becoming a person who lives with purpose, discipline, and alignment. And that begins long before any visible result. It begins in the unseen moments, when you choose discipline over comfort, when you act with honesty, even when no one is watching, when you remain committed, even when progress feels slow. These moments are shaping your identity. And identity is powerful, because once you truly become someone, your actions begin to follow naturally. A disciplined person does not struggle to be consistent. A focused person does not constantly battle distraction. A committed person does not need motivation to continue, because it is no longer something they are trying to do. It is who they are. This is the shift. Instead of forcing actions, you build identity. And once identity is built, actions become automatic. There is also a painful truth hidden here. If you continue to think like your current self, act like your current self, make decisions like your current self, you will continue or produce the same results. No matter how big your goals are, because goals do not change your life. Identity does, and identity is built through repetition, through daily choices, through consistent behavior, through small actions that align with the person you want to become. It is not created overnight. It is built slowly, deliberately, intentionally. There will be days when it feels difficult, days when your old habits try to pull you back, days when your mind resists change. But those are the moments that matter most, because every time you choose differently, you are reinforcing a new identity. Every time you act with discipline, you are becoming more of the person you want to be. Every time you stay committed, you are strengthening that version of yourself. And slowly, something powerful happens. You stop chasing success and start embodying it. You stop wishing for change and start living it. You stop waiting for results and start becoming the reason they happen. And when that shift fully takes place, achievement is no longer something you struggle for. It becomes something that naturally follows who you are. This year will pass, whether you act or not. The only question is, will you arrive at the end of it with excuses or with results? Decide today, commit daily, and become the person your dreams require. Because your future is created by what you do next.